Hi there. In a world where nothing is certain, that means anything is possible, right? If you want to fulfill your dreams and desires, you are in the right place. You absolutely can have a life of happiness. Everyone deserves an abundance of love, laughter, success, health, and wealth. I'm Tara Chadzakis, and you're listening to the Happy, Inspired, Motivated podcast. The show that brings you meditation, mindset, and motivation. So start by giving yourself permission to be awesome. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hi there, and welcome to this week's episode of Happy, Inspired, Motivated. Today I'm joined by Danny Matthews, who has been called a creative genius. Now, Danny has a bit of a varied background. So he started running a tattoo shop at 18, which is really cool. And then he became the first ever mortgage advisor to digitize the mortgage application process. However, he doesn't do that anymore. After a while, he realized that he wasn't living his dream, which was actually creative design and branding. And that's what he moved into. He likes to say that he cut down his salary to minimum wage just to be living the life of his dreams. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Danny to you, and he can tell you a little bit more about what he does. Okay, so we have Danny with us today. So glad that you joined us here today, Danny. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Good. You're welcome. I'm very honored to have you. So you've had quite a varied background, haven't you? I was just giving like a little intro, and I said that you were a tattooist to start with, and then you went into mortgages, but none of that really fulfilled you, did it?
No. So as a kid, I was always really quite creative. If anything, I just wanted to draw. I wanted to create things, and I think I was into what's called role-playing games, computer games, which I think there was a game called Final Fantasy and Zelda, and it was always about stories and you basically living the story of a character. So I was very interested in that. So I tried to create my own. Loved sketching. I mean, if you walked into my bedroom, it was always stacks of sketchbooks everywhere.
Cool.
My mum used to have a go at me for having a multicolored carpet, including lead from pencils. So we ended up having a hard floor put in, a wooden floor, just to make it easier to clean.
I can imagine.
So I loved it, but it was always one of those things. It's a little bit like singing or acting, or most creative industries, really. It was never really encouraged as a career or a business. So
no,
most people, I just went and got a job. So I had many jobs, but one of the ways that I tried to keep my hand in the creative industries was when I trained as a tattoo artist and opened a shop in Birmingham. And it was a great time, actually. But the culture back then, it's not like it is now, where it's a little bit like an expression of your personality or culture.
Yeah.
Back then, it was very much just a way to do backdoor business, really. So the culture wasn't really right for me.
Tattoo parlors are quite
a great experience.
Tattooing's quite hard, isn't it? It looks like because it's so permanent, you can't just get your little rubber and take it out. I'd be absolutely petrified of doing that, I have to say.
Yeah, it was for a certain period. I mean, you have to be really confident in your ability to be able to do it, because it's not just being able to draw or sketch or come up with ideas or create something. It's actually knowing technically how the needles work and how skin absorbs and all those parts of it. So yeah, it's not just a case of picking up a machine and giving someone a tattoo. That there's so much more into it.
So after your tattooing saga, what did you do next then? You got a proper job?
I got a proper job, yeah. I tried to do the creative thing, and then it didn't work out, so I went and got a proper job. I started working for a guy who was an independent self-employed agent for a medical insurance broker, which sounds, it's not something I heard of at the time. So it's really left field. And I thought, I didn't even know what it was at the time. So I was employed as like an account manager for him. And actually, after working for him for a couple of years, I really started to love the industry. I was an account manager, so I was speaking to his clients all day, every day. and hearing all the stories, some of them terrible, some of them really positive, about health conditions and family health, and stories of people going into hospital and changing their life because of a medical thing that happened. So the stories
Okay.
that came out of it was incredible.
Yeah.
And so it became quite an inspiring job to be able to help these people. It's medical insurance isn't one of those things, in case you don't know, that is a necessity in the UK especially. It is a
No.
real luxury because we have the NHS and we're really lucky to have that. So it's a bit of a luxury. So people actually want to buy it. So yeah, I got really interested and spent a couple of years with him, and then realized that I could make something of this. And long story short, I ended up moving to another broker, set up a department for them, and then left to set up on my own with an old colleague. And we expanded and ended up running a insurance and mortgage broker for a number of years,
Yeah.
where I got really interested in solving the problems in the industry rather than actually doing the job, which was interesting. So literally the second I went into mortgages, and we both got qualified and said we'll expand into this area, but the
Yeah.
second I got into mortgages, I immediately went, there's something wrong here. Why have we got all this paperwork? Why is it almost viewed as mandatory that we visit people in their homes instead of doing things online? So decided to go and try and solve that problem.
Okay.
That's where the real journey starts, I think. So I'm happy to go into that in a bit more detail if you like.
Yeah. So digitizing, I guess you're not talking about viewings and things, are you? I'm presuming it's like the whole paperwork system that you're talking about.
Yeah. So essentially, the traditional mortgage broker or mortgage advisor process is traditionally face-to-face and paperwork heavy. So what would happen is I would go and visit a client, and sometimes that's quite a long drive. So I'd drive for a couple of hours sometimes, spend an hour or so with them, and then drive back. When I get back to the office, I have to use the information I have from them in the fact find. So this big form that you have to fill out with their personal information.
Yeah.
I have to transfer this information to a system to then source a mortgage that fits their needs and give them advice before even applying. And when you apply for a mortgage, it's not guaranteed. So if you fail the application, start all over again. And I'm like, I still haven't been paid.
It's a bit shit.
Yeah. So what I mean, one of my first clients when I was a mortgage advisor, at the end of it, I just thought, why have I just spent 15 hours with a client without even knowing if I'm going to get paid or not? It just seems like ludicrous. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah.
So I thought, all that we needed to do really was to gather the information to be able to give the advice. And we can do that online if we wanted to. All they have to do is fill out a form online or over the phone, and then press a button, job done. That would take out so much. So I went and decided to build a proof of concept, which I called Morgie. And I launched it to a small group of clients, I guess, took applications in, and proved that this concept works and that people actually prefer to spend the time to fill out their information rather than someone sitting in front of them basically asking them the questions, because it felt a little bit robotic at times.
It also lets you do it at midnight on a Sunday, doesn't it, if you want to?
Yeah, you can do it 24 hours a day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it means that all of that 15 hours of work was completely taken out, and they can do it within an hour, let's say. They could actually fill out the form in about 20 minutes, but then even getting the advice back, it was about an hour. So I had a lot of interest in this process because I made it very public, the process I was going through, how I was building the proof of concept, the clients I was getting. So I got a bit of attention from people, and eventually helped a company in London to secure a huge government contract by rebuilding the system for them, basically. But as part of that process, I decided that I didn't want to be in the financial services industry, and I would try my hand back as a creative, as a designer, and that's kind of what started my journey where I am now.
I think you're missing a story about losing the ability to walk or something in there, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, and I guess that's the real turning point. So as part of the process of building this software, I, even though I started out loving the industry, I hated it by the end of it. I was dealing with people that were focused purely on money as a goal, purely on profit. And because of that, people normally were a little bit further down the priority list.
Yeah.
So I saw a lot of stuff that I didn't like about the industry, about the people in the industry, and about the vision of the people at the top of what they wanted the industry to be. And it just didn't feel right for me to continue down a path where someone else is of fulfilling someone else's vision, if you like.
Yeah.
And closer to the end of that project, I found myself in central London on my knees with no feeling from the waist down. And ever since then, actually, I spoke to someone in the, I guess, neuroscience area, and they said usually when you lose feeling from the waist down, that is your nervous system and your body saying you cannot go further. That is you done.
Yeah.
And I obviously should have listened to my body a little bit sooner, but when I got to that point, I had no choice but to listen.
That's what the universe does, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And there was a lot going on at that time. You know, my father-in-law got diagnosed with cancer, and we were living with him. So we moved twice in that time. Me and my wife were also, there was some medical stuff going on. So there was so much going on. I think it all just got on top of me. And I decided at that point, that was me done. And I would try and find something else to focus on. And it was only really my wife. My wife was the first person that really encouraged me that the thing that I loved could be a career.
Oh,
and
bless
we
her.
had been together 11 years at this point. And I never really expressed, even though she had watched me try and do things. I tried to set up a print and design business when we first got together and all kinds of stuff. So I always tried to keep my hand in something. But it was never encouraged to be the only thing, the career, the business.
Because you need a proper job, as my mum would say.
Exactly.
You're doing a proper job. You need a proper job too. God.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what it became. And I was sitting at our friend's dining table, drawing away as I were. And my wife just said, "Do you think you can get paid for that?" And actually, it was the first time I thought, I could probably do this. And at that point, I didn't really have anything to lose. So
I presume you're walking by this time. We've overcome that problem.
Walking.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It took about 15 minutes to get back on my feet with
it wasn't a long time.
About 3 strangers. Yes, which was a little bit strange. But yeah, certainly was an experience.
Yeah, I have to admit, mine's pretty much the same. I mean, I didn't collapse in London on my knees, but it's the universe saying, hold on a minute, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Get a grip, woman. Yeah. And then when you think to yourself, well, can I do what I actually love doing and get paid for it? It's crazy. It's like, that shouldn't be allowed. I'm supposed to do what I don't like. Everybody else does. So why should I be lucky enough to do what I enjoy doing? It's crazy.
Yeah, and actually, I've been a little bit obsessed in the past about people who have made careers and businesses and jobs out of something obscure. So I'm obsessed with YouTubers and influencers and how they make money. It's a really interesting thing. And, I don't believe people should say it's not a real job, because what's a real job, And it's just fascinating to me that a child, Ryan's Toys, if you've heard of Ryan, an American kid who his parents, it all started when his parents gave him toys and they videoed him, just like you do on Christmas Day or whatever, holidays, and you video your kid opening the present and the toys. They basically did that and they put it online. And for some reason, the way that Ryan reacted to the toy or the video, it just went nuts and people loved watching it, and it went a little bit viral on social media. And they did it over and over again. And within a period of time, I don't know what it is, but it was a pretty short period of time, they started to upload the videos to YouTube. And within a short space of time, Ryan, who at the time was 4, was earning $21 million a year from opening toys on a video. And something in my brain went,
what the
how
actual
is this happening? Yeah. So I just went like crazy and doing loads of research and just got obsessed with it, because if if a 4-year-old kid can make 21 million a year opening toys on YouTube, what's to say that we can't make a living from drawing cartoons or, creating artwork? And ever
Yeah.
since I realized that, I've come across so many talented, creative singers. Actually, I have a friend and a client close to me, and his daughter does makeup, but not your average makeup, like film makeup. So
Yeah.
she does her face in like creatures and does her hair as like Yoda with her face all like a reptile, and she videos it on Instagram, and that's her thing, and
Yeah.
it fascinates me that for all of the or for the lack of all the non-encouragement that we get, I don't even know how to phrase that. See,
Yeah. And yeah.
but for the lack of encouragement that we get, it's amazing to find the talented people that are making money from just doing stuff they would do for free.
Definitely.
So yeah, it's an amazing thing.
Yeah. I mean, I work with clients to get them from the 9 to 5 to work for themselves. So doing,
Mhm.
living the dream basically and doing what they really love. But that kind of thing is completely different. Like being on YouTube is just totally random. And my daughters know a guy who actually on the island, because you don't imagine that you're ever going to meet anybody that does that. And
Yeah,
he left his job at McDonald's to work because he's got a YouTube channel. I don't even know his name, is to be honest. And he gets paid to review stuff. And that's so he's left McDonald's to go and do that because he's doing so well. And it's just like, oh my God, that's actually somebody that's I kind of know, which is just crazy. Because YouTubers always
yeah,
seem like people that are like totally removed from everybody else. You just don't think you're going to come across one. But this is like
mm,
madness. This is the
yeah,
new normal, though. This is the new proper job, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I've done some work in the micro influencer branding kind of space, and it's a really really interesting space. I think we'll slowly get by the time we get to grips with the fact that you can take a picture on Instagram and be paid thousands and thousands for it, or even millions. It'll be too late, and but it'll be a saturated market, and that's
So
kind of
why
what
am I not
happened with
getting paid
YouTube, I
millions for my
guess.
pictures on Instagram?
Yeah,
What the
exactly.
hell? Who am I not to? Oh, I need to talk to somebody else, don't I? I need to find the person going to pay me £1 million for my pictures. Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
Go
Yeah,
on.
it's crazy. It's a really, really crazy industry.
So you're doing branding now. So branding to me is somebody with a mood board with lots of different colors, like pastels and different font types, maybe a picture of somebody's
Mhm.
sofa, and they're like, "This is your brand." Is that what branding is?
It's part of the process.
Okay.
So a common thing I try to explain branding to people is, despite the fact that your customers will the first thing your customers are probably going to see is your logo or some kind of colors or something around your visual brand, as I
Yeah.
call it. It should be the last thing you do. So even though that's the first thing they see, it should be the last thing you do, because there's so much that goes into creating a identity of sorts.
Hmm.
Most people miss out on that stuff, and the reason that the other stuff is important is because it's what creates your identity. And the reason that I use the word identity and interchangeably with visual brand is because it should reflect you or your
Yeah.
clients or your customers. It should reflect them, and without knowing the other information, it's just impossible to do that. And the other information is things like strategy, messaging, and behaviors in the business. So that's really what I do as a business, both sides, the design and the strategy elements. But I have to be very mindful that, like most people understand branding as a very visual thing. So I'm on a bit of a mission to re-educate the business community in particular, to understanding what branding is, and that actually it can solve the world's biggest problems, but we don't realize it because we don't understand it.
Hmm.
So that's what I do as a business, and that's kind of where I'm heading.
Yeah. You see, I just automatically think branding is visual. I don't think
Mhm.
of it as the message, or what people are going to learn from it or understand from it. I don't think of it as in that depth, but I suppose we're all kind
Mhm.
of doing our own little mini branding all the time, aren't we? Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Every time we
absolutely,
show up.
and yeah, and you should be. It's funny when people say I did a rebrand, and like it's something you just set and forget, but your brand is a living thing.
Mm.
You should, without you even knowing, it is changing all of the time, because it changes when people change their perceptions about what you do.
Yeah.
So so there's a conversation I've had recently around trust and confidence. So trust, that I would go with confidence over trust any day of the week. And the reason for that is that trust is a gut feeling.
Mm.
And some people would say a brand is about a gut feeling, but trust is like something that you build from doing, so from having the customer. So when someone buys from you, that's
Yeah.
when trust starts, really. That's when they start to understand more about how you operate and how you treat your customers, and all those kinds of things. You
Mm-hmm.
build trust in your world. You can't build trust from a brand new client or customer. It just doesn't happen.
Okay.
You probably could, but it would take a long time to do. We all know that it takes a long time to build and a really short amount of time to break trust.
Yeah.
So this idea that people can build trust, like, the people buy from people they know, like, and trust,
Yeah.
they can't. Like, it's really rare for someone to trust you before they buy from you, but they're probably really confident in what you can produce, or the results that you can get for them.
Yeah.
So I started to dig into this a little bit more, I guess, and ended up creating brand confidence, because branding is such a broad topic that most people can't define it in any particular way. So I wanted to define it for the people that I had as clients, and
Yeah.
that I had experienced. And confidence is the big goal. I think that we put a lot of weight on trust, but that takes a long time to build. So
Mm.
having the goal of confidence, whether you're a leader and you want people to have confidence in you, whether it's a team and you want your team to have confidence in communicating your vision and what you're working towards, or
Yeah.
even if it's clients, you just want them to be able to explain to someone else the kind of results that you get, or the kind of thing you offer.
Yeah.
Confidence is a thing that we're always working towards, I think. And whereas trust is a gut feeling, you can influence confidence, and you can do certain things to influence that.
Mm.
So I focus very much on the confidence element of branding, through whether it's visual or not.
Yeah.
Um,
That's interesting. Yeah, I suppose people start to trust you once they've start to work with you, and then they get to know you, and
mhm.
they see results, and then they start to trust that you know what you're doing. I guess
Yeah.
confidence in before is confidence that that you do know what you're talking about, I guess.
hmm Yeah. People buy from you when they're confident that you're going to deliver on the result you say you're going to deliver. And it's only once you deliver it that they trust you,
Mm.
because all of a sudden you've had an impact in their life or their business that is tangible, and they can go and tell other people that they said this, they told me to do this, I did this, and now I can tell you that it worked. And
Yeah.
that's where trust is built, really. But it's really hard to do that beforehand.
Yeah, I suppose you can't really do it unless you've interacted with them, have you, as well?
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool. So you're changing the world of branding then?
I think I'm just trying to change the world, and I just think branding's the best way to do it.
We
you know,
certainly got big dreams there. I'm going to change the whole world.
Yeah, I mean, there's so I talk a lot to people within the branding process about purpose, and
Mm.
about why you're actually running the company you run, or why you're actually doing the thing you do. And people get a little bit scared sometimes, because it's such a personal kind of thing. But actually, if you just think about it from a business perspective,
Mm.
you having a reason to exist beyond making money is really important. And there's a really easy way to start to find that out, because the United Nations have goals for the whole world that you can essentially tag onto. So they have 17 sustainability goals
Mm.
that you can choose from. They are things like no hunger, no poverty, these big problems in the world. And then the last one is partnerships to create the change. So if you can't pick one from all of them, the
Yeah.
last one is you partner with someone else to change one of them. So I focus on that a lot, because I think it's a really easy way, if you struggle with finding a purpose in your business beyond the financial aspect. It
Mm.
really helps you to think about what I care about and how I can make a difference in the world. So yeah, I believe that branding can change the world. It will just take one business at a time, or one person at a time to do that in each different area. So a big goal, I guess, I have for the business is that I want to be I want to be formally recognized. This is going to sound ridiculous to some people.
No, go on.
I want to be formally recognized by the United Nations as having a significant impact in all 17 sustainability goals. That's basically it.
Cool. So you're working with businesses that are involved with each of those goals in some way.
Yeah, and even if they're not, we'll make it so they are. So,
Okay.
some people I deal with haven't quite found that purpose or that thing they care about, or they probably haven't even thought about it
Mm.
as being a factor to their success and their growth as a company. So, as part of the branding process, very early on, we dig into a little bit about your past or things you care about, and whether that's for example, my mum never had any money. I didn't come from a good background, but she did try her best.
Mm.
She would get things like prudential loans. When people used to knock at your door for the
Yeah.
payments, she used to
Yeah.
get those to buy Christmas presents. And I remember on my birthday when I was a kid, a postman came to the door on my birthday and gave me a Nintendo 64. And I just cried. I just bawled my eyes out because even though I was young, I could recognize that I knew my mum couldn't afford it. And it was some kind of finance or borrowed money of some sort.
Yeah.
And that was really tough. So I would love to find someone who is linked to that in some way to help them with their brand. Whether it's something to do with gaming, for example, or something to do with like a local area or poverty or finance or whatever. So I can find real passion in most businesses.
Yeah.
Because of the purpose that you can inject into it. Yeah, so as long as I can do that, they're the kind of businesses that I want to help.
Perfect. So what are your big goals for 2021 then? Are we going to have the 17 aspects of United Nations this year? Is that this year's goal, or have we got something else in mind for the end of this year?
Yeah, so
The end of
this year's really
2021. What you're looking back and celebrating? What you're like,
so
yes, I did that.
yeah, absolutely. So I've had to change the business quite a lot then through the pandemic and through last year. I was always under or my goals over the last couple of years have just been, I just want to wake up and do this thing that I do, this design thing and the branded thing every day. And if I can earn enough money to pay the bills and have a nice life and do that every day, then I'm happy.
Yeah.
And since then, my views have changed slightly in the sense that I had a conversation with a guy online that eventually became a coach of mine, who was talking about kind of leveraged business models and all these kinds of things. And at the time I was like, yeah, I understand it. It's just not my goal. I just want to design stuff forever. And he kind of challenged me on it, actually. And I've always understood that the time for money aspect of being a designer is always going to be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, you're very limited, aren't
constant.
you?
Exactly. But I've never really delved into what I would do to combat that. And really my conversation with this coach, his name's Greg, my conversation with Greg was him challenging me, saying, look, you have to realize that this isn't going to last forever. So I decided that actually I'm going to have to stop doing the thing I love for a certain period of time to be able to build a business that allows me to do that for longer. So I changed the business last year, built a branding program, which is now the core business, and it allows me to leverage my time, but still have a much greater impact in fulfilling those sustainability goals. So I'm completely focused on that at the minute. And
so as a branding program, so are you teaching people how to brand themselves, or is it group coaching? What is
so it's a hybrid of a group program with one-to-one support. So I wanted it to be, I was always told by other creators that you could never do a brand strategy group thing, because it's so in depth and there's so much time in research and those kinds of things. But actually, when you strip it back a little bit, you can so I basically created a very lean branding strategy program. So there's no design included, but it does take you through the strategy elements, the messaging, and the behaviors of a brand. So by the end of it, you have everything you need to create the brand, whether you go to someone else to do that or use us as a business to create that for you. So that is my focus. Well, basically people can go through that. It's an 8-week program with 10 weeks support. And essentially that allows me to have, it doesn't matter if there's 100 people in there, 1,000 people in there, it takes the same amount of time from me. And it means that I can spend more time with these people on a one-to-one basis as and when they need it, to create then what will become the visual brand. Perfect. So it's ended up being a great business model for me to achieve my goals while helping other people achieve theirs, and to inject a little bit of purpose into their business. It's been really good. So that's my sole focus on growing that this year.
Excellent. Well, that's really cool. I mean, a lot of people have changed over the last year anyway. So that's excellent. Right. So if people wanted to get in touch with you, Danny, how can they find you on the big web?
Yeah, best place to go is dannyand.co. I've actually got a scorecard if anyone's considering branding or just considering benchmarking themselves and finding out where they need to focus in their brand. There's a scorecard on the website that can help people to find out what that is, whether it's strategy, messaging, behaviors, and oh, have you? Oh, interesting. Yeah, so hopefully it gave you some insight.
I was like, oh my God, I need to work on that.
And it does. It's really interesting, actually, the results of the scorecard that people do, because the question, but I think people don't expect what questions they're being asked. I spent about a year developing the scorecard, because I knew I would need to. I've always had this view of surveys, for example. Like, when you see statistics come out from news outlets or online or websites or whatever, I've always had this really, what's the word for it? This really kind of strange thought that I can make results say whatever I want them to if I just ask the right questions. So I've always been a little bit. So I'm a bit skeptical of surveys, if I'm honest, just because if I want to get if I want to get a case study from someone, I just have to ask the right questions and they will answer them in the way that I want them
definitely,
to. Yeah. So I wanted to structure it in a way that was yes, no answers. It's either a yes or a no, so it makes it really simple. And the questions are not expected from branding. So they are, some of them are about business, some of them are about how you communicate. But it does give me as a business and as a person a really good insight into where you could improve immediately. And that helps me then contact people and say, if you do this one thing, it would make a huge difference that you may not have heard of before or realized that you could do. It's been really powerful. It's the biggest converting thing on the website. It converts visitors to scorecard completions at about 60 to 70%. So it's been an amazing way for me to learn about the business community and where their problems are.
Excellent. So that was dannyand.co.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, confusing, I know. Everyone wants me to say .uk or something else, but it's just .co.
Well, that's pretty easy, I suppose. Danny with a Y and .co.
Yeah.
Right.
dannyand.co.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today and telling us all about your amazing branding and your world mission. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Supportive of that. That's so cool.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot, Danny. Thank you for listening to the Happy, Inspired, Motivated podcast. I'll be back next week bringing more meditation, mindset, and motivation for your happy and successful life. To find out more about our community, go to tarachatzakis.com facebook.com/happy inspired motivated.